To those who have accidentally killed someone, what went wrong? My cousin accidentally shot and killed his older teenage-age brother in a hunting accident. His brother died in his arms while he screamed for help. He had to switch schools BC. The kids bullied him about it, teasing him about killing his own freaking brother. Kids are cruel. Age 13. Summer job babysitting a sibling group. Twins 3, younger brother 1, 1/2, and nap time was 1 PM. Normally napped in their rooms, but this day, for some reason, they wanted to sleep in parents' room. 30 minutes later, a gunshot rings out. One of the twins found a gun in his dad's nightstand and shot his brother. If only they would have been in their rooms. My SOS teacher accidentally killed his wife. It was a horrific story. They both worked at the same school and he dropped her off before parking because it was bitter cold. She shut the door on her scarf and tried to get it out, but the husband didn't realize and started to drive off. Her neck snapped and she died instantly, but her face was dragged along the ground a good distance. This all happened right in front of an elementary school with kids going inside. I can't imagine the guilt that guy lives with. Not sure if it was accidental, but while in college in my first apartment, I came home from work at 3 AM. Some dude was in the hallway outside my door, and I had a bad feeling about it. I paused and went to get the mail, hoping he would leave. Nope. I come back and he is waiting at my door. I asked him what was up, and he said he was looking for John. My name is not John, and I lived alone. I asked him to move and let me in my door. He told me to frick off and get John. I slid between him and the door, opened it and he pushed his way in. I pushed him out. He took a swing at me. I swung back hitting him in the eye, which caused him to fall back and hit his head. Out cold. Forever. Apparently John was the guy who lived in the apartment before me. The dead guy spent 5 years in jail because of John ratting him out for drugs. Dead guy came to get some revenge. Got dead instead. I was a senior in high school and I had a friend with me as we were driving home from another friend's house. It was around 9 o'clock on a really rainy night. This was on a stretch of a main road that was 50 miles per hour with 4 lanes and a turn lane with some cross streets. I was driving and we were just chatting, and I'm an instant. We both see a figure run across the street and stop in the middle turn lane and then turn back to go back the way she came and bam, I hit her. I can still hear the sounds and I can still see her face right before impact. I still to this day think it was suicide by her actions, but it still tears me apart thinking about it. I visit her grave once in a while to pay respect still. A good friend of mine was killed by his best friend. They had gotten deep into M and got into an argument one night. Dude hit other dude in the chest with a shovel. The shovel went right between his rib cage and pierced his heart. It was a semi-freak accident. He didn't mean to kill him, although hitting someone with a shovel is some serious crap. Friend went to prison. Don't do M, kids. I have never killed anyone personally, but I know a guy who had a pregnant mother pushing a stroller with a baby in it chasing her toddler run in front of his truck. Killed all 4. Not me, but a guy that comes into my convenience store I work at killed someone on accident. Pretty much a regular comes in like he always does for his noon Heineken tall boy purchase. Then comes along a very desperate man that needs those last Heineken that the man before him got. Begs the regular for them. Regular pretty much tells the guy to pee off. Then they pretty much just start fighting each other. The guy that was begging starts a fight with the regular. The regular beats the crap out of him. The guy waddled to his car. He then proceeds to sit in his car for 4 or 5 hours. The way the parking lot is set up, you couldn't see the defeated man's car from the register. My co-worker goes to bring the trash outside to the dumpster and notices the defeated man's car. Goes to check on him since it's been several hours. Man's dead. Heart attack right after the fight. He died over a Heineken tall boy. A Heineken tall boy. Not me, but my co-worker. She was driving and a man dove in front of her car and she ran him over. Turns out the man was homeless, drug addict and had severe mental issues. Basically, it was concluded that he had committed suicide. It haunts her and she tells me she wakes up crying because she remembers his face right before it happened. This sounds like a good time for a story about my music teacher. The man would always tell us about how if we ever needed him, He'd go anywhere in the world for us except Turkey. We all thought he was joking for the longest time until one of our friends told us otherwise. He had seen him strung out one night and was chatting him up when he let loose stories about his time in the military. He was a radio tech working on a device to remotely detonate bombs while he was stationed in Turkey when he set it off in a hotel. Someone had set up a bomb in the hotel and he became the triggerman. Dozens of people died and he had killed the daughter of some diplomat. He got out of Turkey but he's blacklisted from ever going back. Fell asleep at the wheel. Single most heart-wrenching experience of my life. Just a reminder to any of you who have been drowsy while driving, pull over. When I was 17 I hit a motorcyclist with my car. It was late at night and he was in the roadway wearing all black after crashing. His motorcycle slid off the road and down an embankment, and I didn't see him. I was traveling about 60 miles per hour. When I hit him he was on his knees attempting to get up. I could see his face when I hit him. I still see his face. His blood alcohol content was 3 times higher than the legal limit and he had apparently just left a nearby dive bar after fighting the bartender to get his keys back. The local small town newspaper released my name, and lawfully, in the story, the motorcyclist happened to be the uncle of a classmate of mine. I joined the Marines shortly after to continue my life of killing. Points for commitment. I killed my wife. Not directly, not intentionally. She was 22 and beautiful and hilarious and smart and wonderful. Haunts me 22 years later. Draws me to the edge from time to time. We dated all through college. More than just a girlfriend. People who met us knew we were perfect together. She was an old soul, and I easily envisioned us growing old together. Even at age 21, she made me believe in myself. I was invincible with her. An aspiring pilot in college, engineering major. I wanted to fly helicopters. I applied to the US Army to be an officer and pilot. It's an intense, frustrating year-long process. She helped me study for the written exam. 2 days before I graduated, I was accepted to flight training in the US Army. We were married a month later on the beach in Goleta, California. She gave me Army aviator wings on our wedding night. For a brief moment, my life was utterly perfect. 2 months after, I joined the Army. I was a semester ahead of her. She graduated UCSB while I was in training. I couldn't attend her graduation ceremony. I was at featuring Rucker, Alabama. 3 days after she graduated, she packed her car and drove cross-country to be with me. I was at a point in my training where I could live off base as a married man. She was worried about driving that far alone. She told me so, but I discounted her fears. But the truth is that I was a hot-blooded 24-year-old married man and eager to resume my SX life. I encouraged her to make the long drive alone. Looking back, my dong was talking more than my brain. A few days later, my XO called me into his office. He flat out told me directly that she was dead, that she died in a car accident. Later, I learned that she was pushing herself and fell asleep at the wheel. A witness, a woman driving behind her, later wrote to tell me her account. She told me she held my wife's hand while she died. For 2 years, I was a shell, a ghost. I quickly exhausted my emergency leave from the Army and then applied for a hardship discharge. I never got my wings. For 2 years, I was lost among the living, dead inside. I had to live with the fact that I pushed her to drive across the USA, even though she had concerns, all because I wanted SX. That was 1994. It's been 22 years. I eventually remarried and had kids, but not a day goes by I don't think of her. God help me. Not technically killed someone, but will definitely carry this guilt to my grave. It was over 15 years ago, but the over time I think about it, it's like getting punched in the stomach, followed by long moments of gut-wrenching emptiness. Mid-90s, I was in college, and a friend was hosting a get-together party at his place. Parents away. Back then we didn't all own cars, and pickups had to be arranged. I will pick A and B, you get C and D because they are on your way. A friend of ours, let's call him X, was not doing well, and decided to skip joining us. I got him on the phone and insisted that he comes with us. He said he's rather stay home, wasn't feeling it, but I persisted in having him with us. And when he argued that transportation would be a problem for him, I found a solution by telling him that 2 friends, let's call them Y and Z, are on their way and will be happy to make a detour for him. I then called Y and Z, made them reluctantly go there to pick him up, a bit out of their way, a dumbass truck driver, and a bit of rain later, and all X, Y, and Z are gone. X and Z dead on impact. Y a few hours later. I will never forget one of the moms wailing at the funeral. Just writing this makes me want to stand up and leave. When I was 18, this was 1996, had a job in a bagel shop about 20 miles away from my house. I was going to school full time and had this part-time job. One afternoon, I was heading home from work. It was a 6-lane divided street going 40 miles per hour in the middle lane. Sunny day, about 65 degrees. Out of nowhere I see a yellow flash in front of me. I hear a gigantic thud, then see this body fly about 100 feet in front of my car. I immediately stop the car. This lifeless body in front of me. In the end, it was a 5-year-old little boy who ran in front of my car to retrieve a soccer ball. I was devastated. I couldn't even drive that car home and see that hug dent in my car. I can still picture the entire incident in my head. From spectators trying to revive the boy, to the ambulance coming, traffic being backed up for miles. I wasn't distracted at all, just minding my own business. All the witnesses said I couldn't do anything about it. State Farm was fantastic about it and took care of everything. Not me, but my ex. Didn't date too long cause we were from different states. Months before we dated, he was married to his wife. They were happily married, or so it seemed. They had their ups and downs like any other couple. He said at one point that she said she would not know how to live without him. One night, they got into a fight. A big fight. From what he was telling me, they were arguing about counseling and she flat out refused to go cause she didn't need fixed. It escalated from there and she slapped him. After that he told her that's it, we're done. She was screaming and crying but he already walked out of the house. He went outside for a smoke. A few moments later, she rushes out, throws a piece of paper at him and keeps going. He was slowly reading the note cause it was dark but the note was saying about who to take what to and to take her dog to her mom who lived in Iowa. It was signed I'm sorry I cannot live without you. He looked up. Bam. She shot herself in front of him. He screamed and ran to her. He was also going to kill himself but their roommate took the gun away first to protect him. He was placed in a psych ward for 3 days. He always blamed himself, and it was difficult to convince him otherwise. I had always feared he would have followed suit eventually, especially after the investigation where they returned all his guns back including the one she used. On a good note, he is engaged to someone else and he hasn't had those thoughts in a long time. About 10 years ago, a guy T-boned me on a motorcycle in Las Vegas, Henderson actually, and basically died in my arms. It was late at night, 1 AM or so, dark, hardly anyone else on the road, and I made a left-hand turn across the oncoming lane when I heard a huge whop on the right side of my car. Thing is, I didn't even see any headlights, so I thought it was clear. My airbags all deployed, which almost scared the crap out of me literally. More on that in a bit. I pull over, jump out, and see a man about 40 feet away in the intersection. He must have flown that far because his crumpled bike was still next to my car. I run over, but he is clearly fricked up. Blood was pouring out of his nose and mouth, and his half helmet was smashed in. I still think if he had a full helmet he may be alive still. I tried to comfort him the best I could and told him everything will be alright and just hang on. He was trying to speak, but there was nothing to be done. Then he just stopped. All the while I'm on the phone with 911. Cops and ambulance show up. They breathalyze me, make me walk the line, recite the alphabet backwards, etc. I passed, but I was in shock and shaking and had to crap something fierce, so I asked to use the gas station restroom. No, they said. They want a blood sample. So, I volunteer and go to the police station, and finally get to poop in a jail cell. Freaking awesome. 4 months pass and nothing happened. Then out of nowhere, I get charged with vehicular manslaughter. WTF. I lawyer up to the tune of about $8,000, and fight it. Turns out the guy was speeding, over the limit on alcohol, and had pot in his system. But I was the bad guy according to the Henderson. They said that since I didn't have a green arrow to turn left, it was a solid green ball at the time, I made an improper lane change and was negligent. Eventually received a $300 ticket after 2 years of legal maneuvering. Case closed. My insurance company settled with his family, without my knowledge, and dropped me like a bad habit. Spent the next 5 years going back to that intersection on the anniversary at 1 AM, and placing flowers for him. When I was 14, my best friend died in a skateboarding accident. It was the 4th of July and we had plans to watch the fireworks together. However, with the typical priority skewed mind of a teenage boy, I blew him off to go see some girl I had a crush on. I got the phone call that he was gone around midnight. For a very long time I blamed myself. If I had kept my plans with him, he would still be here. As I've gotten older the feeling has lessened, but I think there will always be that seed of guilt in me. If my choices had been different, his parents would still have a son, his sister would still have a brother, and I would still have him. On the 5th of July I went to his house to see his family and his mother hugged me. She cried on my shoulder and told me now I had to live for both of us. Throughout my teenage years this weighed heavily on me. I felt as though no matter what I did I couldn't live up to this expectation. Now I'm in my 20s, and I've done my best to live a good life. I now live on the other side of the world, work for myself, and am surrounded by good friends. Although I miss him, I'm not sure I would recognize him if I were to meet him today. I mean, he was just a kid when he died. It's impossible to know what sort of person he would be now. And what I regret most is that I'll never get to meet the man that he would have become. I like to believe that every person I meet has something to teach me. Some lessons are big, and some are small. Some are nice and some are hard. I will always love the time I spent with him, and his brief life will always be meaningful to me. And I know that he would never want me to impede my own growth by feeling guilt that his time was cut short. Death is harder on the living than it is on the dead. We have to keep on and they are forever at rest. At the end of it all we need to not blame ourselves for surviving, but fondly remember the departed and strive to live as fully as possible. And I know that's what he would have wanted, and I'm trying. I was 14 I got a kitten. I've always had trouble socializing with people, and I've just always liked animals more in general, and have mentally and physically treated them better than I would treat my own actual family sometimes. A 15-year-old who lives directly next to me, who had a history of behavioral issues, had hopped the fence and had wrapped my cat in a plastic grocery bag. I wasn't sure if he was trying to steal my cat or to just suffocate it, but I wasn't going to wait to find out. With a running start I tackled him into the wire fence, and he immediately started bleeding profusely from his head. At this point my 90-pound goofball of a lab heard what was going on outside, and as soon as he saw me next to something bleeding his natural instincts kicked in and he went all out on the kid, probably thinking that I was in trouble. I tried to get him to stop, but it clearly was futile. I ran inside to tell my parents and call the police, but by the time the police and ambulance showed up he was already dead. I know that I should feel bad about it, and I kind of do now, but at the time I certainly didn't. You've been visited by Professor Papa. You'll ace all your classes this year only if you comment study hard Papa. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.